Hello, everyone, and welcome to this. As here, it is now Sunday afternoon. So let's recap one of the UFC Fight Night cards that took place last night from the UFC Apex. And more importantly, before we get into that, let me introduce myself. How rude of me. I'm Jason Hagcomb. And if you like this I'm going to go live here on my channel pretty much weekly, breaking down all the happenings in MMA, previewing, upcoming UFC, Bellator cards, and as well talking, what's going on in the realm of mixed martial arts right now. So if you like that, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment as well, because it's very appreciative for the growth of this channel. But last night, the UFC, they returned after that 1 week hiatus with a very pivotal main event, especially in the middleweight division, with Sean Strickland taking on Jack the Joker Hermansson. And, this was a fight that was very interesting for when it came together. It's a very interesting stylistic matchup. We know Jack Hermansson, he's probably going to want to looking to try to find a way to take this fight to the ground. And Sean Strickland, on the other hand, this is a guy that's, was riding a huge win streak coming into this fight last night, since, coming back from that motorcycle injury. He'd been on a 4-fight win streak and beat some tough guys like Nordine Taleb, Jack Marshman, Brendan Allen, and Christoph Jodek as well. So, and when the fight got going, the first round I thought was very close. You could have given it to, Strickland. I gave that first round to Hermansson. I just thought his works with the low kicks were a little bit more impressive and doing a little bit damage. And I know that, judging, they don't look too much at the work of low kicks and calf kicks, which is kind of odd considering how much that technique has really kind of taken over mixed martial arts, or been an effective tool for stand-up striking. But once the fight progressed, it was pretty much Strickland, going to work, landing his strikes. And I think the thing that impressed me the most about Sean Strickland in this fight is he stuffed the takedown, because we knew Hermansson's world was going to be finding a way to get this fight to the ground, showcase his grappling, whether he took the back, got full mount, what have you. But Hermansson went for 8 takedowns, and Sean Strickland stuffed all 8 of them. So not only is Sean Strickland a good stand-up fighter and an interesting character in mixed martial arts, but he's a complete mixed martial artist, because you don't stop takedowns or shut down a Jack Hermansson and do it and make it look that easy. I know it wasn't maybe the most entertaining fight, and a fight that we kind of thought we would get, with blood and guts and going back and forth, kind of like the Hermansson-Vettori fight, where that was just, back and forth, and it came down to really the last round. Well, this was just Sean Strickland, going forward, landing the more punishing shots, and just picking them when he needed to. He didn't need to, make it a firefight or a brawl per se, and it worked out, and was able to shut down, stuff a takedown when needed to, and like I said, 8 times. And to make Jack Hermansson, look that, easy to put away or cruise to a decision, I think just goes to once again show how durable, how talented a mixed martial artist that Sean Strickland is. So he comes away with a big win, and at an important time. Obviously, next weekend here at UFC 271, the middleweight title is on the line, with Israel Adesanya rematching Robert Whittaker. So you get a performance like that, you get a win like that, you elevate yourself into the mix as being a real player, instead of just maybe someone we thought could be. But he took the next step. I thought Hermansson in this fight was going to have too much grappling experience and big fight experience in the UFC. Hermansson's main evented a couple of these, Apex Fight Night cards. And, Sean Strickland never really been in a main event scenario. And Sean Strickland comes through, wins, and, gives one of the more entertaining post-fight speeches, not so much after he got the decision, but with the media. And Sean Strickland is one of these guys that he really doesn't care about what he says and how he offends people, makes comments about, oh, I got a gay haircut or whatever, and just his verbiage and whatever. To an extent, that's endearing, but I don't know. I don't know how that's going to fly going forward. And the UFC is a promotion that's very open on free speech, so I don't think they're willing to filter him. But per se, does it hinder his chances getting a title shot, especially with, the deals that ESPN has with the UFC? You do wonder. I'm fine with him being super free willing and saying whatever he wants. He just kind of speaks. He doesn't think. He just says things. So I don't know. He's definitely got the skills to back up what he says. But nonetheless, he comes away with a big, important win in this fight, and gets himself probably close to a title shot. I don't know if that performance gets you a title shot, especially as, Strickland even said, he kind of cruised, didn't need to take the big damage, but he's right. He didn't need to take the big damage. So I don't know where that puts him in the lay of the land. Next, he's definitely got to be like a 1B or 2. There are some players still out there at 185 that are looking to, get, opportunities to fight for a title. Obviously, Derek Brunson's in the mix. Maybe you make that if Brunson comes through on his next fight. So we shall see what happens. But it's just good to see the evolution there of Sean Strickland, really showcasing not just a stand-up guy, can stuff takedowns against high-level grapplers in the UFC. And, I thought maybe he was going to come in overtrained, as he was even talking about the fact that he was like still sparring like the week of the fight, which is like heavy sparring and heavy bag work and stuff. I thought maybe he was going to tire himself out and overtrain, but that wasn't the case. This guy just puts in the time at the gym, long hours, and came through and obviously paid off, because you don't make Jack Hermansson look like that if you aren't prepared. So a good win for Sean Strickland, and we shall see where he goes next in this title contention. Says he's a company man, and right now UFC definitely can use a couple of those company men willing to take whatever opportunity that is laid down at the table of Sean Strickland. And then moving on, our co-main event, kind of an interesting one as a co-main event, because you really wouldn't think a guy like Nick Maximov having his second fight in the UFC against Punahele Soriano, who has been in the UFC for a while, but we never really thought this quickly would get to a co-main event status, especially coming off a loss to Brendan Allen. Nonetheless, though, that was our co-main event, and and Soriano, I thought in that first round, did a good job. He was able to land a good combo that hurt Nick Maximov and caused some big damage, and so he gave Soriano the first round in that fight. But then Maximov was able to showcase, get the wrestling going. I thought Soriano did well in the second round, and just keeping it up, really not letting Maximov advance the position, and Soriano changed some positioning as well. But then in the third round, it was Maximov that went in for a takedown, and Soriano hurt his lower body, knee, calf. I can't really tell you what it was, but it was a lower body injury, and it affected because it was the easiest access Maximov had to getting the takedown, took the back, and he won a split decision in that fight. In his second fight in the UFC, going 29-28 and 30-27 from Douglas Crosby. So one of those fights that really, this was the kind of the theme for the co and the main event, where two judges, I kind of saw really watching the same fight, but especially in the main event. I guess we got to talk to that. Sal D'Amato, I don't know what on earth he was watching in that main event with Sean Strickland and Jack Hermansson, because look, I think, two judges scoring the fight 49-46 for Sean Strickland. That's how I scored it. I gave the first round, like I said, to Jack Hermansson, and then the rest of the way it was Sean Strickland. But to give, going through the third round, like I know some of the other judges, Derek Cleary gave the third round to Hermansson, okay, what have you, but that's the only round he gave him. Whereas Sal D'Amato, he's making it a 48-47. It's like either you're not paying attention on what is going on in the fight, or you don't know how to score fights, or something, because that is an inexcusable scorecard. And thankfully, two other judges were pretty much watching the fight as the rest of the audience, I mean, the media, there's a lot of media that scored it, 50-45 one-way traffic for Sean Strickland. And that's fair. That first round was close. So I'm not going to hate if you gave the first round to Jack Hermansson like Sal D'Amato did. But the rest of the way, it was pretty clear that Hermansson had his takedown stuff. Strickland was, not saying coming forward wins you a round, but Strickland coming forward and landing the better, harder, more effective, damaging shots. Damage is the name of the game, and that's what Sean Strickland was doing in that fight. And to say that, Hermansson even won the 5th round, like, that's insane. And to give the fight to Hermansson as well, that's beyond insane. So, and judging in Nevada has kind of been all over the place. Thankfully, Derek Cleary and Junichiro Kamijo saw the fight that way, 49-46 for Sean Strickland. But man, like, that's just such a horrendous scorecard. Like, no one's in their right mind with eyes could see the fight being anywhere near for Hermansson. Even Hermansson knows that he didn't win that fight. Maybe he knows he won a round or could have won maybe 2, but I think Hermansson knew that was not his night, and that's just a bad scorecard where a judge maybe needs to get a talking to from the state athletic commissions, though they don't like to kind of hinder their judging or what have you. So maybe a new course, an upgrade, I don't know, but that's just inexcusable. And to have a fight that opposite sided of what everyone else with eyes had seen is just so bad. And it's the worst scorecard I'd seen since that 48-47 Felder and the Paul Felder Rafael Dos Anjos fight. So not really a good scene to be seen for a judging going forward. And hopefully, it improves. And maybe we need to, in this case, open scoring, because there would have been a lot of people wondering how that judge is scoring that. Maybe he gets talking to at the table. What's he seeing? I don't know, but something has to be better than at the end of a fight like that we saw with Sean Strickland and Jack Hermansson, where it's pretty clear who's winning the fight and who's winning the rounds, for it to not even be remotely a respectable scorecard for someone in a commission that's one of the most respected and highly sought after commissions for how to score and handle and get judges and everything like that for judging in mixed martial arts. That's just not a good look for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So just a horrendous scorecard for Sal D'Amato. And you know what? It's a whopper. Maybe he learns from it. I don't know. But nonetheless, at least Sean Strickland did come away with the victory. Should have been unanimous decision. No way on earth should it have been a split decision. And then I guess, one of the other guys that really impressed was Shavkat Rakhmonov, who now moved to 15-0 with a first round TKO over Carlston Harris. And, Harris is a game opponent, but you could tell he bit off more than he could chew. Like, Rakhmonov, this guy, I think he's really going places. Like, your foundation is combat sambo. Sambo's had so much success in MMA. Like, just look at, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, Fedor Emelianenko, coming through that background. And what Rakhmonov is able to do here in the UFC. He's had now 3 fights in the UFC. Only 1 has left the first round, but he's finished everyone. He just has devastating kicks, especially that spinning hook kick that hurt, devastating body punches. And, oh yeah, if this fight were to go to the ground, that is just a world you don't really want to mess with Rakhmonov, where, he's got 15 wins. 7 of them have come by submission. Now 8 have come by way of KO, TKO. This is a guy that loves to finish fights, has never in his career gone to the judges. That is just very impressive. And this is a guy I think we really need to look out for. Look, welterweight's kind of just an open division right now with the champion Kamaru Usman kind of running some contenders out of there. Like, we won't see Jorge Masvidal for a while fighting for a title. We won't see Colby Covington fight for a title. I mean, heck, those two are now fighting each other come March at UFC 272. Obviously Gilbert Burns trying to get in there. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's kind of fallen off the mix. I think Rakhmonov probably gets himself into a title eliminator scenario at some point here in 2022. And you just look at this division. It's just the interesting guys right now are, there's Bilal Muhammad, sure, but there's Khamzat Chimaev, and I think Shavkat Rakhmonov are going to be guys that I think their paths are destined to collide here in 2022. Two undefeated prospects that I think could be the faces of this welterweight division for years to come. Like, look, Usman, he's trying to make those big fights happen. I don't know where he's at. He was even talking about, moving up 2 weight classes, trying to, fight Canelo Alvarez, which is just a terrible idea. But he wants to, venture out and get big money fights. And these are guys that are going to be contenders down the line and just can really mix it up anywhere. I think as well, if you want maybe someone to test Chimaev, I think Rakhmonov may be that guy. I think Rakhmonov may be that guy with his ability, in the combat sambo, his grappling, his wrestling, and what he can do on the ground. Plus, he can, bring the fight to you on the feet. Made short work of Carlston Harris, has made short work of Michel Prajeses, and as well Cowboy Oliveira. This is a guy that just gets it done everywhere he's been and has barely seen a third round either, too. And like I said, never has gone to the judges' scorecard. So a guy that really, I think, opened a lot of eyes and broke through. And this is the time for someone to do that in a division that's kind of got its dominant champion. And I think Rakhmonov really is a force and the best thing to come out of Kazakhstan since Borat. So, you know what? Shout out to Shavkat Rakhmonov. This is a guy we really need to keep our eye on. I think big things are happening for Rakhmonov here in 2022. Brendan Allen comes in on, super short notice, up a weight class at light heavyweight and gets the second round naked choke submission over Smiling Sam Alvey. It's a big win for Allen. I thought for Smiling Sam, Brendan Allen coming in here was actually a tougher opponent in some ways than Phil Hawes, who had to pull out his original opponent due to an injury. But you know what? Brendan Allen, like that's a great win to come in on short notice, up a weight class, and choke out a durable, tough Smiling Sam Alvey. And, the only 2 losses that Brendan Allen has had in the UFC are to Sean Strickland, who just was in the main event and had a, near title contender opportunity. Now, granted, that was a catchweight fight when they fought, and Chris Curtis. And Chris Curtis is a guy that's just, really on the rise at, welterweight, middleweight, and more so middleweight now in the UFC, but can differentiate between the two. But big win for Brendan Allen. He's probably going to move back down to middleweight. Just, you got to take these opportunities and make the most of them. And that's exactly what Brendan Allen does. And for Smiling Sam Alvey, I'm glad to see him say it on his social media that he's going to, take a hiatus, regroup, reevaluate some things because, Sam Alvey hasn't won a fight since June 2018 when he had a split decision win over Jean Vellante. Since then, he's been on what? He lost, that's 3, 6. He's on a 7-fight losing streak in the UFC. And you know what? He seems like, as well, much like Sean Strickland, a good company guy, a reliable fighter, always shows up, always makes the weight as well. So you do respect that as he moved up here. They moved it up, obviously, because Phil Hawes was out, but to light heavyweight. But nonetheless, this is a very professional fighter, but definitely needs to make some changes. Maybe get a new team, get some new coaches, what have you. I don't know. Sometimes you just need a change to get a breath of fresh air and life into your mixed martial arts career. And maybe that's what Sam needs. Just, make a change, see what happens. And, he will hopefully, be off for the better. But, losing 7 fights and, haven't won since 18, as I said. And, 7 fights you've lost. And one of them was a split draw when he probably should have lost that fight to Daun Jung back in October of 2020. So nonetheless, hopefully Smiling Sam makes some adjustments, he's a really nice guy and one of the, good guys you root for in mixed martial arts. So hopefully he makes the adjustments, and Brendan Allen just continues to prove that he's just one of those last of a dying breed fighters, short notice, up a weight division, bring me on in and I'll go out there and get the finish. And not only that, when he got that rear naked choke finish, no hooks in, just took the back, and just shows how good grip strength that Brendan Allen does have as he's able to choke out Smiling Sam Alvey. And Brendan Allen moves now to 18-5 as a professional mixed martial artist. Then we move on to one of the more interesting fights on this card, especially if you watched last season of The Ultimate Fighter. I know not a lot of people did, but I was one of them. And I thought, look, while maybe The Ultimate Fighter lacked a lot of the sizzle that the show normally presents with, hijinks and promoting certain drama, whether it's between the castmates, the fighters that are competing for a contract, or the coaches, we really didn't have a lot of that this season, but the fights were definitely the stake without the sizzle. The fights were fantastic on that season. And, this was supposed to be the middleweight final for the Ultimate Fighter 29 middleweight championship. Brian Battle, who was the winner of that season, took on Trey Gore, who would have been in there, but had to pull out with an injury. He heals up. And you know what? Brian Battle is a guy that was last picked on that season of The Ultimate Fighter. He comes on through, and I think in that show, he had some of the more impressive wins, especially the Andre Petrovsky ninja choke submission, where I thought Petrovsky was going to be just too much for anyone really at that 185. I thought it was going to be Petrovsky and Gore. Battle upsets him, and Battle's a very durable, tough guy, as we saw in this fight, as Tresean Gore did land some big punches, hurt and busted open the right eye of Brian Battle. But, give Brian Battle some credit. He was able to make the adjustments, weather that storm, get the fight to the ground, and won a unanimous decision victory. Now, this one I thought maybe Gore should have won. I gave Gore the first 2 rounds just on the damage that he was doing, landing the better punches as Battle was trying to get the fight to the ground, and really didn't have super success of it until the later stages of the second and in the third round. But you know what? Good for Brian Battle. That's a big win. Now, your first win as a UFC fighter against someone who felt they should have been the not only the middleweight champion, but it called their shot to be a double champ in the UFC at both middleweight and a light heavyweight. So Tresean Gore gets the first loss of his career. I think Tresean Gore will be fine. Got some experience in it. The thing that's just hurt Tresean Gore is he just can't stay healthy enough to have an active time in the UFC or as a whole in MMA. Like, look, he's only had now 4 professional fights, still 27, still young, but very just been inactive, and he's had like 2 fights when he started in 2018, wanted to get that career going in 2017, just 1 fight in 2020. And with the exception of those Ultimate Fighter fights, which don't even really count towards your records. So technically he hadn't had a pro fight since 2020 as a whole. But he's just got to, hopefully, he turns the corner of that injury bug and has made some adjustments, because I like Tresean Gore. I think he's going to be a real solid player. And I don't know if the trajectory works right now, especially on this card with Nick Maximov getting a win, but I'd like to see Nick Maximov take on Tresean Gore, as they were supposed to fight in the LFA back in August of 2020. But that fight didn't happen because Gore got hurt and he had to pull out. But I think that's a fight that I'd really like to see. I know, maybe they're not super big on putting those prospects together, but I think it's one that if you've been following the regional scene and things like that, you would like to see Tresean Gore and Nick Maximov get in there. But for Brian Battle, he's just moving on up. Brian Battle moved on tough. He came out to Triple H's The Game song by Motorhead, and you want to play the game, you got to find a way to stuff the takedowns of Brian Battle, because Brian Battle, he just wears on you, just grinds on you, and kind of just breaks your spirit to a little bit and just gets you tired. As look, most of his wins have come by way of submission, just doing that or grinding out the decision. He grinds out a unanimous decision win, and you know what? Good for Brian Battle, from another guy proving that, just being the last pick doesn't mean you aren't talented or anything. And Brian Battle's proved a lot of people wrong. And I expect big things for Brian Battle as 2020 and his time here in the UFC progresses. Then we go to the opener on the main card, and oh my goodness, Julian Arosa takes on Steven Peterson. This fight has definitely a round of the year candidate, with both guys just landing unbelievable damaging punches where it looks like Peterson's going to put Arosa away. Then Arosa comes back and it looks like he's going to put Steven Peterson away. It was just such a great back and forth fight. Rightfully so. Julian Arosa wins the split decision. But man, you know what? If you're Steven Peterson and you've had your issues making weight, The best thing you can do is have a performance like that. And honestly, that's the way to just, get people to forget about your weight issues. You're going to just go out there, lay it all on the line. And, Steven Peterson did do that. And, give credit to, his opponent as well. Julian Arosa, Juicy J was definitely super juicy that night and comes through and gets the split decision as, Julian Arosa earns the $100,000 bonus because, the weight miss. That affects the bonus being given out. So all $100,000 go towards Juicy J, Julian Arosa. So, what? Good to see that happen for Arosa as he was in that war. Big performance for him. And for Steven Peterson, you have a performance like that, you kind of change the trajectory a little bit that you can go out and have fights like that. But man, you got to make weight. And I know that's been a huge issue for Steven Peterson. He has not made weight since 2019. He's been a little inactive at 145. Maybe it's time to move up to 155. If you are having trouble making weight, especially a big miss like that, weighing 149 when you're given the missing weight by 3 pounds with the pound allowance, that's just not acceptable at all. And I think maybe it's time for him to move up to 155. I think definitely has to be getting a talking to from either the UFC or his management. But this is a guy that's willing to throw down. It's just, can you handle the power up, the weight class, the 10 pounds? But maybe it's time to get him a new nutritionist. I don't know. But Steven Peterson, you can't be missing weight by that much, that inconsistently when you haven't been that active as well. So maybe that's a big factor in it. But for Arosa, enjoy that $100,000. Well deserved, and happily to see that he did get it because Peterson had missed the weight. The feature prelim saw John Castaneda, the Sexy Mexi, take on Miles Johns, and what a performance from John Castaneda as he really showcased some beautiful striking in this fight. Really was able to mix it up with some knees and, go to the body and just hurt right to the face as well with some beautiful headshots, beautiful combinations to Miles John. Hurt, wobbled him, and we don't really see Miles Johns get hurt that much. And then when time came to close the fight in the third round, John Castaneda did do that. He landed another combo, hurt Johns, put Johns on the floor, and Castaneda pounced, got mount, worked over, and got the arm triangle positioning, and as well, put away Johns and put Johns to sleep with that arm triangle choke. And that's the first time Johns has ever been put to sleep in a situation like that. And for John Castaneda, this is a guy that you just like to see him get that success happen. And this is a guy that's been around MMA for now 10 years, fighting on, your combates, your king of the cages, and finally gets a chance here in the UFC. And now 2-1 with, showcasing he's got power. We saw that in the Eddie Wineland fight. And now we know he's got power as he was able to really hurt Miles Johns, but really just mixing it up, mixing those combinations together and putting away someone like Miles Johns. That's no joke at all. Only the second loss of Miles Johns' career. And the other time was Mario Bautista landing a flying knee followed by punches in February of 2020. So this is a fight where you had to go out there, work for it. John Castaneda, the Sexy Mexi, does do that and came on through with a huge win for him. And it's great to see it. You always root for someone like that that's, worked hard, paid their dues, and, reaping the benefits of what they had sowed and putting away someone tough like Miles Johns. Very impressive. And I look forward to see where Johns goes next because this division is just so stacked, so many players at 135. So we shall see where John Castaneda goes. And then also great to see return from injury, Amin Hakeem Dawodu. He got a unanimous decision victory over Mike Trezano, the tough 27 lightweight winner. Honestly, like I said, it was great to see Dawodu back, and Dawodu really looked sharp and crisp with his striking, whether it was just throwing combinations, but especially his work to the body was very impressive. And Amin Hakeem Dawodu, this is one of the more technical, solid strikers that is in the UFC at 145. And I know Hakeem, he missed out on that Shane Burgos fight last year. Hopefully maybe he can get an opportunity to get it back. But this is the start. And I think as well, we're going to see maybe the best Hakeem Dawodu we have seen in the UFC. And he's had some great performances in the UFC in his career so far, but now that he's, had the surgery, fixed his back up, and just healthy and just more active and finding ways to, land those combinations together, and as well stuffing Trezano on the takedowns. So I'm very impressed with Hakeem Dawodu. Look for big things for him as well this year at featherweight, which is starting to be a division that is heating up in the UFC. So good for me and Hakeem Dawodu to close out what the Canadians had done on that card. So, I know he wants to get finishes. Hasn't worked out that way. The majority of his wins in the UFC have come by way of decision, minus that head kick over Yoshinori Hori back in 2019. But I think me and Hakeem Dawodu, he's on his way to getting there. And you know what? Getting a little bit more, being more active, those finishes will come. Chidi Njokuani, brother of Anthony Njokuani, came out, made his UFC debut after getting a contract on this past season of Dana White's Contender Series, and wow, just took 16 seconds to defeat the power bar Marc-Andre Barrio, and that's an impressive win, honestly. Look, I think Chidi Njokuani should have just been signed outright. He was way too talented to be on the Contender Series to begin with, and just proving that, at 33, he's not the youngest guy in the world. He's trying to make the most of his time, but to put away Marc-Andre Barrio, who, the power bar had some struggles getting, his feet wet in the UFC, but his last couple of fights, he really was looking like he'd put it together and found ways to, get those wins. On a 2-fight win streak in the UFC, and to come out and just showcase your power, land a perfect punch right to the side of the head of Barrio, and then finish him, seconds later with some ground and pound. Chidi Njokuani, man, this is a guy I think we really need to look out for, and definitely he needs a step up at 185. Maybe you make him Brian Battle or somewhere along those lines. I don't know. Maybe Battle doesn't have enough experience against someone that picked up their 21st victory. I don't know, but I want to see Chidi Njokuani kind of fast track up the ladder of the UFC. Not saying he's going to, break into the top 15 or the top 10, but he needs someone kind of hovering around that mix, because like I said, he's 33 years old and he's just too talented to just kind of be, seeing how things work out. Like, he wants to get it done. He says he wants to fight for, championship gold. I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity, but with a performance like that, getting a tough, durable Marc-Andre Barrio away in 16 seconds, you definitely got, your eyes noticed on you right there. Alexis Davis and Juliana Stolyarenko, man, this fight had its interesting moments, as Stolyarenko did land an illegal up kick to the grounded Davis. No points were taken from the referee, Mark Smith. I think, honestly, either we have to make sure that the points are taken for an illegal up kick right away, or we just make some amendments to the rules where an up kick to a grounded opponent, fair game, like it is in, Ryzen in Japan, some of those rule sets. And I think we should maybe be getting to that point where, I think we got to use it. It's a tool. So many fighters just force of habitly doing it. And I think we should just make some adjustments to the rules as the sport is evolving. But, Alexis Davis, she wins this unanimous decision. Her wrestling was crisp, and Stolyarenko was a prospect I was really high on. If you saw her last fight in Invicta before coming to the UFC, like, she's a lady that loves to just got in there, made it a very bloody fight, very impressive performance, had some back-to-back under, 50-second armbar victories, but hasn't been able to put it together. And maybe it just shows just the level of how good these fighters in the UFC are, whether, what you think of them, but, that's 3 straight losses for Stolyarenko. I don't know where she goes from here. Normally that's the sign where, back to the regional scene or back to Invicta in this case, but not really something that I expected to see. I expected Stolyarenko to have a lot of success at women's bantamweight, but Alexis Davis still putting it together. Alexis Davis, she's a veteran of the game. She's just 37 years young, and we all remember her Sabina Mazo performance where she got that decision victory last February. She's, February just seems to be her month where she puts big performances together. So if I'm her, I try to find another fight next February. But, she loves to fight these up-and-comers. And, make it difficult, make it bloody, make it nasty for them. And as well, Davis willing to take a punch or two to get the success of her takedowns. She does that, picked up the 21st win of her professional career for the native of Niagara Falls. So the Canadians on that card had themselves a great outing as well. And we'll get to the opening Canadian in Malcolm Gordon just momentarily. Jaelton Almeida, huge first round performance against Danilo Marques, some Brazilian violence. And Almeida, honestly, this was a very big performance, his first fight since getting a contract in the UFC. And he's definitely a prospect that I would look out for at light heavyweight, where, you ragdoll on the Contender Series, a fighter that, that Dagestani wrestling background, and you kind of do what the Dagestanis do to other fighters to them. Very impressed with his ground game, his grappling, and he's light heavyweight. And he's got big power in his hands. And Danilo Marques said that he was blocking some of them, but he was really in no position to really defend properly. And Almeida kept putting the big punches on. So I think Almeida is a prospect to for sure keep your eye on as well. And he moves to 15-2, and just showing the success of how important this Contender Series is, where you give these guys tough matchups. If they pass through, they're set to have some success here in the UFC. Then Phil Rowe took on Jason Witt in the second bout in the welterweight division. And Phil Rowe's a guy that's been doing a lot of combative jiu-jitsu and trying to improve his ground game. And Jason Witt was still able to expose and take down Phil Rowe time after time. Witt was just controlling the wrestling, the grappling, all those positions. But the thing about MMA that makes it, one of the best sports on earth and just so unpredictable is Rowe was able to get back to his feet and just land like a perfect 3-punch combination that caught Witt, hurt him, dropped him. And that was the fight. In a fight that Rowe was pretty much losing in all those aspects on the ground and trying to improve his grappling. We know that with the combative jiu-jitsu, he didn't need it. He showcased one of the things that brought Phil Rowe to the dance is his striking. And he's got big punching power, hurt Witt with that picture-perfect combination, and gets the victory, and now moves to 2-0 in the UFC. And that's got to feel great for Phil Rowe as well, because this guy, it took him forever to find an opponent. Had fights, fighters pull out, events change due to the pandemic and what have you. So for Phil Rowe to go 2-0 in the UFC, very impressive. And I also appreciate he's willing to try to evolve his game by partaking in that combative submission grappling stuff. He hasn't had success at it yet, hasn't got a win, but he's trying to improve and be a better fighter. And all the best to Phil Rowe in his career as things progress on. A fun character as well, and he looked in also great shape. And then the opening bout, Malcolm Gordon took on Dennis Bondar. Fight just went 1 minute and 22 seconds as Bondar had a really nasty arm injury where his elbow got dislocated after Gordon had the positioning, was trying to lock up an arm bar, couldn't do it, but where he had the tight positioning, the tight grip, the arm bar just popped out, and you heard Bondar scream in pain. And Gordon, now that's 2 wins in a row. Not the way I think he envisioned it, but you get 2 wins in a row in the UFC. And I think Gordon's as well showcasing what I thought we would see from Malcolm Gordon coming into the UFC, what we saw in his time in TKO here in Canada, when TKO was, the top promotion in Canada, where, he's willing to get aggressive, showcase his striking. And then when the fight goes to the ground, that's his world. That's Malcolm Gordon's, bread and butter. He loves to get the fights to the ground, and didn't even really necessarily need to get this one to the ground. He just had the perfect positioning for that arm bar, and the arm did pop out from the angling as well. So Gordon now picks up his second win and, picking up steam and building momentum as he's finding that form that we thought we would expect to see from Malcolm Gordon in the UFC. So that was the UFC card from last night. A very interesting card, some big performances, an unbelievable fight. If you definitely need to check something out from that card, you need to check out the Julian Arosa, Steven Peterson fight. That was one that, got a round of the year candidate in it here early in 2022. As well, some good performances. You want to definitely check out Shavkat Rakhmonov, and as well, Sean Strickland. It's a big win for a guy trying to move up the ladder and really be a player in the middleweight division. As we continue on here, a little bit of time left. Obviously, they announced that the Ultimate Fighter is returning with the premiere to launch in May. They are filming it right about now. Juliana Pena will coach against Amanda Nunes, with heavyweights and women's flyweights being the women's weight division. The heavyweights is kind of interesting to me because there's a couple guys that I think have their chances. Obviously, Kamaru Usman's brother, Muhammad Usman, coming in from the PFL, though he did have a loss in his last time out. Probably one of the early favorites to go out there and have the success. But I think it's going to come down to a guy as well in Zach Pauga. Now, Zach Pauga, when you look at him, this is a guy that's fought mostly at light heavyweight. But I think the only issue I have is, can he handle the power of some of these big guys? Because like heavyweights, they hit like Mack trucks. But Zach Pauga is a very durable athlete. Like, this is a guy that played rugby professionally, was on the practice squad of the Houston Texans in the NFL. And I think, honestly, he's just overall durable, and has gone the distance in his fights at light heavyweight. And I think he's going to be one of those lighter heavyweights as well that we see, that Cyril Gahn weighed in, or Stipe Miocic. And that seems to be a big key to success, where you don't need to be this big, bulking heavyweight. And by the time the middle of the second round is on, you're, huffing and puffing, can't wait for that water break between rounds. So I think those would be some prospects to look out for. Though very interesting that they're going in here with Bobby Maximus, the 43-year-old who has had some time fighting in the UFC, but not since like 2006 was he fighting in the UFC. So that's a very interesting look at things at the heavyweight division. So I don't know. I think the show has lost maybe a little bit of luster, like I said, on the, breaking down the Brian Battle, Tresean Gore fight. This was a fight that was a season that didn't have much substance to it, but the fights were great, especially the bantamweight fights. Just look up every Ricky Tricosi fight, and he ended up winning that season. But we shall see what they do. There is some history, at least a little bit of bad blood, so I expect them really to do push the sizzle, the drama element between Pena and Nunes in this season, more so than Volkanovski and Ortega, where they really didn't have much of that. Maybe some of it, but there was nowhere near of like, your classics that we had seen from coaches in the past, whether it was, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz being coaches, or, the TJ Dillashaw's, Cody Garbrandts, what have you. Like, there was nothing like that last season. So I think we do get that. But I think that's looking for a fight, which we'll get to in a sec, looking for a fight, or obviously Contender Series has replaced how you find better prospects. But obviously, ESPN, they need the content. They need something to fill some voids, especially in the spring. There isn't college football. College basketball is winded down. College hockey's done. You need something to fill the void. Why not have every Tuesday the return of the Ultimate Fighter? And, speaking of looking for a fight, there is the Looking for a Fight card this evening on UFC Fight Pass. So if you have Fight Pass, definitely go out of your way to look at. There are some interesting names on this card, especially one in former Bellator bantamweight champion Eduardo Dudu Dantas, who will be fighting on this card, looking to get inside the UFC. He was supposed to be on the Looking for a Fight card back in November of last year, but he had some travel issues coming from Brazil. That's all cleared away. He's taking on Jose Alday today, and I think, obviously, you want to talk about a guy that's just another shark in the deep infested waters of the bantamweight division of the UFC. If Dantas wins and looks impressive in that fight, I expect him to be signed. But he is taking on a tough Mexican here in Jose Alday, who's, he spent some time in Combate and, really grown up there, as well as some time in Japan and Pancrase. So this is a very durable guy, can push the pace around, and as well has good hands, has a 57-second KO on his record. But I think Dantas is the one that I think we're all really excited to see. And as well at middleweight, you want to talk about, building up middleweight, Josh Fram. This is a guy that had fought for the LFA middleweight championship last May against Gregor Rodriguez, who's now in the UFC. Since then, he picked up a win in the LFA against Hanato Volante in October. This is a guy with very heavy-handed powers. His wrestling hasn't had to be showcased, but his power is just unbelievable. And still, he is, he's in that prime of his career age, 28 years old, just turned 28 as well. Had a birthday this past January. So, and beaten some guys like Bruno Oliveira, who were on the Contender Series a couple of seasons ago. So that's a guy to really keep your eye on. And I think if you want an exciting welterweight on that card, look up Mikey England. Mikey England has kind of been based in this FAC promotion, based out of Kansas City, Missouri. And the fights he has, they're just, straight out of a video game where he just lands bombs, big highlight reel, KOs over his opponents. Just one loss on his record. That was a 45-second rear naked choke loss to Montreal James. So you know what? Honestly, that's a guy as well I think you really need to keep your eye on as well in Mikey England for what he does. And he's still super young, and he's just got devastating power, highlight reel KOs. Chris Lanconi as well, making his first fight outside of Bellator on this card. So you know what? These shows are usually really good, and I like that we get to see the full show here other than just the highlights of what the looking for a fight will bring to the table. So there is that to whet your appetite if you want more MMA on this evening on UFC Fight Pass. And there's also a Fury FC show this weekend on UFC Fight Pass as well. They have two shows set up here this coming weeks, I should say. They have a show today, as I said, Fury FC 56 from San Antonio, Texas. Cody Steele making his pro MMA debut. That's a prospect to look out for. As well, Anthony Ivy, a guy that's had some experience in the UFC. Things didn't go his way, trying to find his way back there. Former champion in WXC, which is a promotion based out of Michigan. That's one to look out for. And as well, big regional week as well, especially on Friday on Fight Pass. There are, 4 shows going on. There's an LFA show from Phoenix, Arizona with Hussier Flormega on the card. Anthony Pettis' debut of Showtime FC. What else is there? There's a Fury FC card as well on a Friday, and I like how they normally do their shows on Sunday. But I think Sunday you get the best eyeballs on you for what you want to do as a promotion. But Fury FC has a card. Jose Johnson, who just had a huge win on one of the last Fury shows of 2021 over Mo Miller, where he got a triangle choke submission and was on the Contender Series a few seasons ago. So that's a guy to definitely keep your eyes on for that show. If you're going to check out the shows next weekend, there's the Luke's show from Mexico. So there's a lot of regional MMA to keep whetting your appetite on. If you want to check out some prospects. And as well, Diego Lopez is on that Fury FC show next Friday from Humble, Texas. And I thought Diego Lopez, he got a raw deal for his time on the Contender Series where, he had an eye poke injury, fight got stopped, and then, he's lost a split decision. He's looking to find that form that we saw with him in Luke's FC where he was just, beating dudes at ease. He was their former featherweight champion. So that's one as well to keep their eyes on as he makes his debut for Fury FC next Friday. And Friday is just so much MMA on Friday, as some of those promotions, like I said, Fury, they'd love to do Sunday, but Super Bowl Sunday, that's promotional malpractice if they continue to do things like that. So I've pretty much taken about 50 minutes here of your Sunday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll definitely be back in the week to preview UFC 271. Do have some interviews coming out this week as well. Spoke to Canadian heavyweight Dustin Johnson, who fights this Friday on One Championship in his second fight for One Championship as well. So that that's the guy to definitely keep your eyes on for Canadian heavyweights. A very tall, athletic heavyweight. And as well, I did speak to an up-and-coming prospect going on for That's going to be fighting on the Titan card coming up, and Landon Quinones. Sorry, just a little technical issue here. Yeah, Landon Quinones I spoke to, who will be fighting on not next week, but the week after that, February the 18th at Titan FC 74 against, a very tough, durable native of Kyrgyzstan in Maitabek Orulbe Ulu. So that's going to be a very interesting fight for Titan FC and for Quinones to get back after coming off, some injuries and, missing out an opportunity on the Contender Series. So that's another prospect to look out for. But that's in 2 weeks' time. I thank you for spending your time with me right now. And we'll be back in the week to preview UFC 271. And as I said, look out for my Dustin Joinson interview. And I have a Landon Quinones interview coming for MMA Suck with the Joinson interviews also coming for MMA Empire. So with that, I'm Jason Hagholm. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.